Hello everyone. On the one hand, it seems that everything in our life can be explained by science and theory of probability, but very often, life can baffle even the most experienced scientists. For example, have you heard about the theory of coincidence? According to it, many times when an uncommon event occurs, it will most likely happen again in the near future. Especially often, these mystical coincidences occur in medical practice, and so far, no one has been able to explain them logically. Today, we will tell you about several incredible coincidences that have become famous throughout the world. Let's get it on. Neil and Robert. According to the results of an investigation carried out by a BBC journalist, the probability of encountering your double is minimal. In fact, it's less than 1 in a trillion. However, we're talking about a complete similarity, including the shape of the ears and so on. But finding someone who is your lookalike is much easier. And here's the evidence. These two guys, Neil Douglas and Robert Sterling, were on the same plane. They're not related. In fact, they don't even know each other. Here's their story. One of them accidentally took the plane of the other on a flight to Ireland. So when Neil asked Robert to move, Robert turned around and they were both shocked. It was like looking in a mirror. The passengers around were looking at them and laughing, Neil says. But that's not the end of the story. Neil and Robert met at the reception of the same hotel as well. And later, their paths crossed again, but this time at a bar. That's when the men knew the universe was telling them to spend some time together. They took a couple of pictures together, and in a couple of days, everyone started talking about them. Among the commentators were a couple of red-bearded doppelgangers. Unbelievable, isn't it? Megan and Holly. These women had not seen each other in almost 40 years, but a happy accident brought them together. In the 1970s, when they were just little girls, they were separated from their families and sent to different orphanages in South Korea. Sometime later, they were adopted by different families in the United States. Megan grew up in New York and her sister Holly in Virginia. They couldn't remember each other's faces, but a real miracle happened. Holly got a job as a nurse at a hospital in Sarasota, Florida. She worked on the 4th floor. 3 months later, Megan also ended up working on the same floor. The women were on the same shift and quickly became pals. They soon began to notice suspicious coincidences in each other's lives. Both had been abandoned by their parents, both lived in orphanages in South Korea, and were later adopted by American families. Holly suggested to take a genetic test to confirm their suspicions of kinship. The DNA kit was ordered from Canada. The response was positive, and both women couldn't be happier. Well, if that's not destiny, then what is?
Thank you. Oh, you're welcome.
Laura Buxton. This story is so uncanny that it couldn't be made up, and even if it were, no one would believe that it's possible. This happened in 2001. Laura Buxton, a 10-year-old English girl, traveled to Staffordshire to celebrate the 50th anniversary of her grandparents' wedding. There, she came up with a pretty original idea, launching a red helium balloon with a message into the sky. Laura attached a note with her address, asking for the balloon to be returned to her. Laura's note flew through the British sky for at least 250 kilometers and landed in Wiltshire County. It was found by a local farmer who remembered that his neighbours, the Buxton family, had a daughter named Laura. Another Laura, as you may have guessed. That's how the girls, who turned out to have the same name, met. But they also had the same age, similar appearance, and similar hobbies. Besides, they even had the same pets: a black Labrador, a grey rabbit, and a guinea pig. Amazing, isn't it? For some time, they wrote each other letters and talked on the phone until they met in real life. They're still in touch today. That's how sometimes a simple coincidence can create a lifelong friendship. Martin de Jonge. You've probably heard the term butterfly effect at least once. It means that an insignificant influence on a system can have a serious consequence, not only within it, but also outside of it. In short, sometimes the couple of minutes you spend looking for your wallet can save your life. Something similar happened in the life of this guy, the Dutch cyclist Martin de Jonge. Because of his profession, the athlete has to travel around the world, and aeroplanes have already become his second home. In July 2014, he had to travel from Amsterdam transferred down to Malaysia, where he worked, trained, and raced constantly. The athlete bought a ticket for flight number 17 of Malaysia Airlines, but at the last minute found a cheaper option with a stop in Frankfurt and decided to change his ticket. This decision had an incredible impact on his life, because Malaysia Airlines Flight 17 crashed over the Donetsk region on July 17, 2014. All 298 people on board died. But the most incredible thing about this story is that a couple of months earlier, Martin had escaped from death in another plane on the same airline. We are talking about Flight 370, which was traveling from Malaysia to Beijing and disappeared somewhere over the Indian Ocean on March the 8th of the same year. There were 239 people on board, and their bodies and the remains of the plane were never found. On that occasion, Martin also decided to take another flight to Beijing at the last moment. He left only half an hour later than the unfortunate flight number 370. What is this? Some kind of sixth sense or fantastic luck? Probably a bit of both. William, Carlos, and Jorge E. Wilbur. Did you think that stories about mixed-up newborn babies at hospitals only happen on TV? Well, apparently not. This story took place in Colombia's capital of Bogota. It all started in the summer of 2013, when two friends, Janeth and Laura, went to a local butcher shop to buy some ribs. There, to her surprise, one of the girls saw a colleague of hers named Jorge behind the counter. He, however, pretended not to know her. Maybe he's just ashamed of his part-time job, Janeth thought. But her friend told her that the guy's name was William, and that he worked there every day from morning until night. The following Monday, the woman arrived at the office and decided to tell Jorge this funny story, assuring him that she'd seen his brother in that store. The guy laughed and said, "Yeah, I have a brother, but his name's Carlos, and he doesn't look anything like me." Janeth happened to change her job after a while, but the story was still stuck in her mind. She decided to find the butcher's Facebook page and show it to her former colleague. The guy was astonished by his resemblance to William and began to look at the photos posted by his doppelganger, and he found a picture of William with his brother Carlos, or rather Carlos's twin brother, as you might have guessed. It turns out that in 1988, the boys were mistakenly switched at the hospital. Carlos was transferred to a Bogota hospital from Santander because of his health problems. There he was mistaken for William, left in the hospital in the capital, and was discharged along with his brother Jorge, who was not really his brother, and William was mistakenly returned to Santander to stay with Wilbur. As you can see, it's a tricky story. Finally, after 25 years, they found each other.
Jorge, Wilber, Carlos, y mi amigo William.
Although some of the guys didn't want to believe what happened at first, they're now grateful to life for bringing them together.
Bien, sí, señor.
Ay, señor, ¿qué? Uy, señor, perdóname.
Chu and a drowning boy. Another incredible coincidence occurred in a small Chinese village. There, an old man named Chu saved a child drowning in a local river. He and his wife heard the boy's cries nearby and ran to save him, despite their state of health and old age. The boy was playing with his grandmother when he fell into the water. Fortunately, he was quickly taken to the hospital, where an incredible coincidence was discovered. The fact is that the child owed the old man not only his salvation, but also his birth, because 30 years earlier, Chu had saved the boy's father in the same river. Hopefully, this kid's future son will be a bit more careful, so that the brave old man doesn't have to jump into the river a third time. Lu and Zhang. This young Chinese couple accidentally discovered that they'd already met in an indirect way. Many years before, they'd actually met. As they were getting ready for the wedding, Lu decided to dig through the old photos of her fiancé Zhang to surprise him at the celebration. To her surprise, she found a familiar face in the background of one of the photos. In a photo taken 16 years ago, Lu's mother was in the background. In 2000, she visited the same place as little Zhang and his family, and accidentally found herself in the same shot with her future son-in-law. Donald Trump and the Simpsons. You've probably heard about how the authors of The Simpsons predicted the future several times. For example, Lady Gaga's performance at the Super Bowl or Germany's victory over Brazil in the 2014 World Cup. No one knows whether it's a coincidence or the writers are geniuses, but this case has surprised the public. Many claim that The Simpsons predicted the unexpected victory in the current US president's election, but it's not all that simple. Back in 2000, 16 years before the start of the presidential race between Donald Trump and former Secretary Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, the series actually showed an episode in which the famous businessman was called ex-president before Lisa Simpson's victory.
As you know, we've inherited quite a budget crunch from President Trump.
However, Trump didn't even appear on the screen, while the images, in which he's behind the stage hypnotizing Homer with his famous hairstyle, appeared in 2015 when Trump was already officially running for presidency. Psst, dude, are you looking for new technologies and great gadgets? Are your thoughts focused on the future? Do you love huge vehicles and can't imagine your life without robots around you? Then visit TechZone and you'll find all this and more. The link is in the description. You interested? Great.